Pyramids, construction, and secrets. Imagine lifting 2 million limestone blocks, each weighing as much as a hippopotamus, using nothing but ropes, ramps, and human sweat. Echoes of chisels ring through the desert as architects align colossal structures with true north without GPS. Now picture an internal void so large you could park a 10-story building inside and nobody set foot in it for 4,500 years. The Great Pyramid holds its breath as we approach, daring us to uncover the methods behind its majesty. Rise before dawn on Giza Plateau. Dust swirls around pyramid labor camps while teams of hewers quarry limestone at Tura. Each block must be sliced to perfection, even a millimeter off, and the outer casing would catch sunlight all wrong. Workers use copper chisels hardened in charcoal fires, not diamond tools. They lubricate wooden sledges with water, reducing friction by nearly half, as wall paintings depict men pouring liquid onto sand ahead of massive loads. By year 20 of Khufu's reign, tens of thousands of laborers march across the Nile from agricultural villages. During inundation season, farmers swap hoes for hammers, seeking food rations in exchange for quarrying work. Their camp resembles a medieval city. Bakeries fire clay ovens, dormitories house 4 families per room, and scribes keep meticulous records on ostraca, every ration, every missed day, even the injuries. Evidence suggests a medical team tended wounds. Graffiti scrawled on pyramid walls include jokes like, "Come back tomorrow if you fear the goat," proving laborers had humor under the sun's wrath. Engineering genius emerges in the ramp systems. To this day, Egyptologists argue over straight ramps versus zigzagging ones. Recent discoveries of mud bricks at Wadi al-Jarf, a harbor 120 miles south, reveal boathouses storing cedar timbers imported from Lebanon. That wood may have served as rollers or scaffolding. Meanwhile, an ancient papyrus discovered at Turin mentions the offset of the king's pyramid by 50 cubits, indicating precise surveying tools, a plumb bob, leveling instruments, and cords calibrated with knotted intervals to maintain exact right angles for each side, accurate to within 5 minutes of arc. Inside Khufu's pyramid lies the so-called Grand Gallery, 47 feet high, nearly 8 feet wide. This ascending corridor narrows at the top, supporting a corbelled ceiling that might have held massive blocks in place during construction. The gallery's walls bear graffiti left by work crews reading Friends of Khufu. Archaeologists suspect these inscriptions corroborate the theory that skilled artisans, not slaves, cut and placed interior stones. Higher still, the king's chamber sits on a bed of red Aswan granite, brought 500 miles down the Nile on specially built barges. Overhead, 5 relieving chambers exist to redirect weight, preventing collapse. Centuries later, 2017's muon radiography revealed a previously unknown void above the Grand Gallery, larger than an airplane hangar. Its purpose remains a mystery. Storage chamber, cenotaph, or relief to reduce weight. No robot has reached it yet. Its silent darkness invites speculation about hidden treasures or unforeseen engineering secrets. By contrast, lesser-known pyramids, like those at Dashur, show evidence of trial and error. The bent pyramid's angle shifts halfway up, likely because builders realized the initial 54-degree slope was too steep, risking structural failure. That experiment paved the way for the Red Pyramid's gentler 43-degree incline, considered the first successful, true, smooth-sided pyramid. These transitional designs illustrate how Egyptian architects learned from mistakes, applying geometry and physics in real time thousands of years ago. Casing stones, glossy Tura limestone, once blanketed the Great Pyramid, reflecting sunlight like a mirror. Travelers in antiquity describe it as a silver mountain. Over centuries, those casing blocks were stripped for temples and mosques in Cairo, yet some remain near the base, hinting at the original brilliance. The interior, Core is rougher, made of local limestone. Mortar recipes are puzzling. Microscopic analysis reveals a mixture of gypsum and calcium carbonate, but some joints show traces of iron-rich compounds, suggesting a binding agent stronger than modern Portland cement in certain conditions. Voices. Foreign visitors add color. Herodotus claimed workers were conscripted corvée laborers under Khufu's command. Modern excavations at Giza show seasonal recruitment rather than slave armies. Tombs of pyramid builders at Giza, complete with personal belongings and commemorative reliefs, suggest they were honored rather than oppressed. One mastaba depicts seamstresses, bakers, and stewards, implying a community effort where specialists of every trade contributed to the pyramid's rise. And what about the Sphinx and its causeway, leading toward the Valley Temple? Some theories propose that the Sphinx predates Khafre, carved by an earlier civilization and later integrated into Khafre's funerary complex. Geological studies point to deeper water erosion on the Sphinx's body, hinting at a proto-dynastic origin, perhaps 7,000 BCE. Others dismiss this as misinterpreted weathering. Regardless, the alignment of pyramids and the Sphinx toward Heliopolis, the center of Ra worship, reveals a religious dimension. These structures weren't mere tombs, but cosmic machines anchoring Pharaoh's divine journey through the afterlife. Boats, buried near the pyramids, add another layer. The Khufu ship, excavated intact in 1954, measures 143 feet and demonstrates advanced woodworking. Its dismantled planks show mortise and tenon joints sealed with reed packing. Was it purely symbolic? Solar bark to ferry the pharaoh across celestial waters, or a functional vessel? Reconstruction experiments in 2017 proved it could sail, though slowly, leading to the idea that ancient Egyptians built seagoing ships earlier than previously believed. Finally, strive to imagine the laborers' chants echoing against limestone walls as they hauled blocks up earthen ramps. Listen for the scrape of copper tools carving stone, the distant splash of felucca, sails on the Nile. The pyramids endure as testaments to organizational prowess, artistic ambition, and spiritual conviction. Each gap in understanding, alignment methods, hidden chambers, mortar composition, serves as an invitation. Every block placed is a question unanswered. Every angle measured is a challenge thrown back to us. Next, we journey from the silent stones of Giza to the eerie whispers of a curse, Tutankhamun's curse, where a boy king's tomb becomes the most haunted site in archaeological history. Tutankhamun's curse. Imagine stepping into a sealed chamber untouched for 3,000 years, only to feel the chill of destiny closing in. Candles flicker as Howard Carter and his team lift the golden mask, and whispers of a curse slither through. The shadows. Now picture a line of aristocrats, generals, and doctors stricken by illness soon after peering inside. Tutankhamun's tomb yawns behind Carter, its corridors humming with a silent menace that history can't fully explain. It was November 1922 when Howard Carter, funded by Lord Carnarvon, cleared the final rubble inside KV-62 in the Valley of the Kings. The air inside was musty, still as if holding its breath for 3 millennia. Carter famously radioed, "At last, I have found it, Carnarvon." His words echoed across continents, igniting feverish excitement. On February 16, 1923, the team removed sealed doorway after sealed doorway until a crack revealed a gilded sarcophagus. Inside, Tutankhamun lay intact, wrapped in linen and gold, an archaeological miracle. Yet before Carter uttered those famous words, locals whispered that disturbing a resting pharaoh might unleash divine wrath. Ancient Egyptians inscribed mortuary texts, warning grave robbers of unnamed but deadly consequences. No explicit curse was carved on Tutankhamun's walls, but Carter and Carnarvon both felt a weight beyond mere sand and stone. On April 5, 1923, just 2 months after opening the tomb, Lord Carnarvon developed blood poisoning from an infected mosquito bite. He died in Cairo days later, prompting sensational headlines. The guardian of the tomb is guarded by death itself. Carnarvon's sudden demise gave birth to Tutankhamun's curse. Newspapers around the world ran lurid stories. Curse kills Lord. Queen Victoria's descendant struck down, stirring fascination or fear. Over the next decade, at least 16 individuals linked to the tomb discovery reportedly died under mysterious circumstances, though later research revealed many succumbed to natural causes. The statistic of 16 was likely inflated. Sir Arthur Weigel, the Egyptologist, quipped that the curse was nothing more than coincidence and Cairo's deadly malaria. Nonetheless, the myth endured. Dr. George J. Gould, an American financier, allegedly drank water from the sarcophagus and died of pneumonia. Carter's own dog dropped dead at his feet. Sir Bruce Ingham, an engineer, died of enteric fever before reaching Egypt. Even members of the Egyptian Antiquities Service were rumored to have met misfortune after handling funerary items. In truth, detailed records show most deaths resulted from infection, influenza, or accidents. Yet the alignment of unlucky events against the backdrop of ancient Egyptian supernatural warnings fueled the legend. Inside Tutankhamun's burial chamber, hieroglyphs refer to the spells that ward off intruders, incantations to repel malevolent spirits. The gold mask itself symbolized protection, its polished surfaces reflecting light, driving away darkness. But did ancient priests really believe curses could physically reach out centuries later? Mortuary priests certainly prescribed spells to protect the decay and provide sustenance in the afterlife, implying that grave defilement could have spiritual consequences. In this cultural backdrop, supernatural retribution was a powerful deterrent. As Carter worked meticulously, scooping dust from around the walls, he noted hieratic texts on the antechamber walls that spoke of fearful terrors to befall any who dared molest the king's remains. These texts resembled those in earlier royal tombs like Seti I's, warfare against grave robbers at a metaphysical level. They emphasized ritual purity, sacred violation, and cosmic imbalance if the deceased were disturbed. In a society where the pharaoh was considered divine, trampling on divine territory invited divine penalty. Scientific skepticism grew over the decades. Researchers cataloged each person who died prematurely after being associated with KV-62, finding many were in poor health, traveling through malarial zones, or engaged in risky expeditions. In 2002, a detailed study by Richard Kay and others at Duke University concluded that there was no paranormal link, just coincidental timing, amplified by sensationalist press. Carter himself wrote in his journals that he never believed in a curse, considering it a product of overzealous journalism, yet the tomb's treasures reinforced the mystique. Tutankhamun's alabaster canopic jars bore spells to guard his organs. His gilded shrines portrayed deities ready to defend the boy king. The innermost chamber housed jars filled with aromatic oils, reputed to emit toxic fumes when cracked in half, a confined space, perhaps a practical deterrent against intruders. Moreover, X-ray tests in 1968 revealed skeletal injuries and evidence of compromised immunity, suggesting that certain grave contents could harbor harmful bacteria or molds. Carter stayed on as supervisor at Luxor for years after the discovery. He often returned to KV-62, lighting brass lamps and dusting fragments of faience. He recorded the tomb's layout in perfect detail: the annex, the antechamber, the burial chamber, and the treasury. He noted subtle features, like the 4 tomb shrines nested inside one another, each designed to protect a lower layer from harm. He lamented that only one fragment of Tutankhamun's mummy he'd seen spoke to a slight spinal deformity. The Young king likely died at 19 from an infected leg wound amplified by malaria. So the myth of the curse overshadowed the poignant reality of a short life truncated by disease and accident. Even today, tourists gamble with selfies taken in front of the mask, searching for signs of bad luck. Paranormal investigators claim electromagnetic anomalies in KV-62. Some visitors swear they feel sudden chills or see flickers of movement in corner shadows. The tomb's microclimate, pressurized air, high humidity, can cause hallucinatory sensations or dizziness, giving rise to eerie perceptions. Technology now allows us to map carbon dioxide levels inside the vaults, confirming that heavy human breath can trigger disorienting conditions. Does that mimic a supernatural presence? Or is it simply physics and biology at play in confined spaces? The answer remains open. Across popular culture, Tutankhamun's curse appears in horror films, video games, and novels. From 1932's The Mummy to modern streaming shows, the trope persists. Hero trespasses, hero suffers. Yet some creators blend factual details. Lord Carnarvon's fatal infection, the golden death mask's protective symbolism, the hieratic spell, texts etched into limestone. Museums hosting Tutankhamun exhibitions often include panels debunking the curse myth, contextualizing the deaths as casualties of early 20th century medicine and colonial-era reporting. Despite rational explanations, the aura of dread clings. Voices whisper that disturbing the tomb's treasures might still trigger karmic payback. Rumors circulate that some artifacts removed during Carter's excavation carried latent toxins from tomb molds. Conservationists now use face shields and latex gloves when handling relics, a precaution that feels eerily reminiscent of ancient fear. Carbon dating shows Tutankhamun's tomb belonged to the turbulent Amarna period's aftermath, a time of religious upheaval, perhaps lending a cosmic analogy that destabilized souls might lash out if disturbed. Every flicker in the corner, every sudden chill. Science can measure the air, but can it measure the weight of an ancient oath? Next, we sail from Tutankhamun's timeless curse to the lost tomb of Cleopatra and Antony, where romance, politics, and mystery meet under the sands. Cleopatra and Antony's lost tomb. Picture a queen so powerful she could charm Rome's greatest general with a single pearl. Golden barks glide along the Nile, carrying Cleopatra and Mark Antony to their destiny in Alexandria. Now imagine, their final resting place swallowed by earthquakes, tsunamis, or the greed of tomb robbers. For 2 millennia, archaeologists have chased rumors of a buried mausoleum where love, politics, and betrayal meet in dark stone. When Cleopatra was 7th, Philopator and Marcus Antonius fell under the spell of shared ambition and romance. Rome's fate hung in the balance. After defeating the forces of Cassius and Brutus at Philippi, Antony sailed to Egypt, where legend says Cleopatra dissolved a priceless pearl in vinegar to win a bet about hosting the grandest feast. Their union fused Ptolemaic royalty with Romana charisma, spawning a court where poets recited sonnets in Alexandria's gardens and philosophers debated the nature of the afterlife under papyrus canopies. Yet Rome's Senate watched nervously as this Greek-Egyptian queen and Roman triumvir funded ambitious building projects, temples to Isis, new libraries, and a grand boulevard linking the royal palace to the harbor. Antony declared Cleopatra Queen of Kings, granting her territories across Syria and Asia Minor. In Rome, Octavian spread rumors of Cleopatra's foreign magic corrupting Antony's loyalty. The Battle of Actium in 31 BCE became the turning point. Cleopatra's fleet, sent to reinforce Antony, was sighted and pursued by Octavian's admiral Agrippa. Ancient sources claim Cleopatra's flagship led Antony's vessels away, allowing Octavian to claim victory. Antony, believing Cleopatra dead or captured, fell on his sword. Mortally wounded, he was taken to Cleopatra's mausoleum in Alexandria, where, according to Plutarch, she cradled him as he died, lamenting, "Regret that I cannot die for you in your place." Cleopatra herself met a tragic end. Ancient accounts insist she allowed an asp to bite her, a symbol of divine royalty, rather than appear at Octavian's triumph in Rome. Her death on August 12, 30th BCE, marked the close of the Hellenistic era and the start of Roman Egypt. Octavian buried Antony in Cleopatra's mausoleum. Sources say she had prepared a handsome tomb, richly adorned with statues of Isis and Osiris, and walls lined with lapis lazuli, silver, and gold leaf. But Alexandria suffered repeated earthquakes and tsunamis in the intervening centuries. The city's necropolis, once sprawling along the shore, gradually sank beneath the Mediterranean. In the early 20th century, some explorers thought they found hints of tomb walls beneath shallow water off Abu Qir Bay. Diving teams reported submerged pillars and statues of Ptolemaic rulers bearing Cleopatra's likeness, though no definitive inscription confirmed a queen's tomb. Local fishermen spoke of heavy stones dredged up in nets, rumored to be sarcophagus fragments. In 1992, a French-Egyptian mission led by Frank Gaudiot uncovered the sunken city of Heraklion, revealing an opulent temple complex and statues nearly intact, proof that Alexandria's royal quarters could be preserved underwater. Such finds sparked renewed hope that Cleopatra and Antony's tomb might lie beneath layers of silt, trapped by shifting sands and rising sea levels. Meanwhile, on land, archaeologists probed underground around Qom el-Dika, a district once home to villas and public baths. In 2013, Dr. Zahi Hawass and Dr. Kathleen Martinez initiated systematic excavations at Taposiris Magna, a temple west of Alexandria dedicated to Osiris. Martinez's team discovered stone sarcophagi, painted crypts, and papyrus fragments referring to Cleopatra's festival and a queen beloved of Isis. They also found jewelry bearing her cartouches, suggesting the royal family's presence. But despite extensive digging, no conclusive tomb emerged. Some Egyptologists argue that her mausoleum might be closer to the royal palace, now buried under modern Alexandria's urban sprawl. Adding to the mystery, ancient writers like Cassius Dio describe the mausoleum as larger than any other in the East, with temples adjoining and porticos leading to inner chambers filled with gold and precious offerings. Such accounts fueled speculation of hidden passageways and secret treasure rooms. Yet Alexandria's geology complicates the search. The city sits on layers of soft alluvial soil that compress and shift, especially near Lake Mareotis. Satellite imagery sometimes picks up anomalies, circular depressions that could mark ancient foundations, but urban development often obscures these signals. On the literary front, William Shakespeare immortalized their story in Antony and Cleopatra, writing lines like, "Age cannot wither her, nor custom stale her infinite variety." Yet even stagecraft cannot reconstruct a physical tomb. Some scholastic traditions held that Octavian, needing to legitimize his rule, kept the exact burial site secret to prevent it from becoming a rallying point for Egyptian loyalists. Others propose he ordered the mausoleum's decorations stripped and artifacts looted, so no grand sepulchre could inspire revolt. If true, only fragments of alabaster and basalt might remain, scattered across museums worldwide without clear provenance. Modern techniques offer new hope. Ground-penetrating radar, GPR surveys in eastern Alexandria identify echoes of large voids, perhaps ancient cellars or crypts beneath collapsed columns. Core sampling reveals ancient mortar mixed with included fragments of blue-green faience, likely used in Ptolemaic shrines. Combined with magnetometer data and sonar readings offshore, researchers map areas where earthquake damage could have flipped burial chambers into naval sediment. Each data point narrows the search grid, but the labyrinth of shifting mud makes exact pinpointing nearly impossible. Narratives from local fishermen suggest that a dredging operation in the 1960s inadvertently recovered carved limestone blocks, decorated with cobra motifs. These pieces, sold as building material, eventually ended up in private collections. If authenticated through petrographic analysis and comparison with known Ptolemaic quarries like those at Mons Claudianus, such blocks could identify sections of Cleopatra's mausoleum, yet political unrest and funding limitations hamper large-scale underwater archaeology in Egypt. Radiocarbon dating of organic matter found in crypts near Lake Mariout suggests some structures were built in the late 1st century BCE, matching Cleopatra's reign. A sealed tomb discovered in 2018 contained an unlooted bronze mirror engraved with a double-headed serpent, symbolic of Egyptian unity under a co-regency. Though it lacked direct inscriptions, conservators lean toward attributing it to a Ptolemaic queen. Could this mirror have once rested on Cleopatra's vanity table? The possibility electrifies Egypt watchers worldwide. Popular culture continues to stoke the fire. Netflix's Cleopatra in Space animated series and recent novels like The Lost Queen by Stephanie Thornton imagine subterranean passageways leading to secret sanctuaries. Video games, from the Assassin's Creed franchise to Smite, depict Cleopatra's tomb as a hidden labyrinth teeming with traps and mythical guardians. Such portrayals, while fantastical, keep global fascination alive. Any new clue sends headlines spinning and social media into overdrive. Yet every clue so far remains tantalizingly inconclusive. Some scholars caution that forcing a narrative risks misidentifying Ottoman-era crypts or medieval Christian burials as the queen's final resting place. In a city layered by millennia, distinguishing one queen's tomb from another can hinge on a single hieroglyph or a unique foundation block. Historians also consider that Cleopatra, ever the political tactician, might have intended to merge her burial site with the cult of Isis, meaning her tomb could be part of a larger temple complex rather than an isolated mausoleum. Scientists now hope DNA analysis might identify royal lineage from skeletal remains found in rubble pits and forgotten crypts. If a match appears with known Ptolemaic maternal markers, manifested in mummified livers, preserved hair, or dental samples, it could confirm a candidate. Meanwhile, archaeologists continue to compare texts from Strabo, Plutarch, and Dio, analyzing directions like 3 stadia east of the seawall that might guide teams to the exact neighborhood of the lost tomb. Every sonar ping echoes with the possibility that Cleopatra and Antony waited in stone, only to be lost to tides and time. Next, we shift from royal mysteries to a queen whose fate remains hidden, Queen Nefertiti's whereabouts, where disappearance, hidden chambers, and stolen spoils converge in one of Egyptology's greatest unsolved puzzles. Stay curious, stay weird. Queen Nefertiti's. Imagine a queen so iconic that her face became the emblem of beauty and then vanished from history. Royal palaces buzz with ceremony as Nefertiti, co-regent and queen, reshapes Egypt's worship, only to slip into the shadows. Now picture her tomb hidden beneath temple ruins, sealed for millennia and still waiting to be found. Nefertiti's legacy glows from painted reliefs, yet her final resting place remains the ultimate archaeological ghost. In the 14th century BCE, Egypt buzzed with reform. Amenhotep IV, soon to become Akhenaten, demanded that Aten, the sun disk, eclipse all other gods. By his side, Queen Nefertiti graced temple reliefs, crown's tall blue brush marking her devotion. She appears in scenes bestowing symbols of life, arm linked with the pharaohs, as they launch Amarna, horizon, of the Aten, a city built in devotion. Together they redefined divine rule, showing royal daughters offering incense, rays of Aten extending to tiny hands. Yet after around a dozen years, Nefertiti's public glory waned. In year 12 of Akhenaten's reign, inscriptions shift. Nefertiti's name vanishes from certain royal stelae. The famous Nefertiti bust, unearthed in 1912 at Amarna, captures her striking features: high cheekbones, full lips, asymmetrical eyes beneath a perfect modius crown. But no tomb inscription ever identifies her mummy. Was she co-regent? Did she assume the throne briefly as Nefer-Nefer-Wat? Or did she die or flee before the city's abandonment? Archaeologists have proposed multiple theories. One suggests Nefertiti was elevated to co-regency around year 14, adopting a throne name similar to her husband's. Reliefs from the northern shrine hint at a female figure wearing the double-plumed Atef crown, usually reserved for pharaohs. But the plaster covering that chamber obscures key hieroglyphs. When modern infrared imaging exposes chipped paint, some believe they see traces of Nefer-Nefer-Wat. If so, her rulership might have lasted a brief 2 years before fading from records. Another line of evidence arises from KV 55 in the Valley of the Kings. Excavated in 1907, this modest tomb contains a single coffin draped in gold foil and inscriptions, partly erased. The skeletal remains inside belong to a middle-aged adult with feminine pelvic features, but a skull suggesting male characteristics, ambiguity that fueled decades of debate. Early radiocarbon tests offer conflicting age ranges, some fitting Akhenaten's expected lifespan, others aligning better with Nefertiti if she survived her husband. Recent DNA analysis on mitochondrial markers indicates a maternal link to Tutankhamun, implying the occupant of KV-55 could be Nefertiti's child or co-regent. Yet uncertainties over the dynastic lineage leave the mystery unsettled. Meanwhile, local villagers at Tel El Amarna report that plundering in the late 19th century unearthed small sealed shafts near the North Riverside Palace. Accounts mention discovery of linen-wrapped jars and graffiti referencing the beloved of Aten. By the time formal excavations began, floods of shifting sands had erased precise locations. Attempts to locate these shafts through remote sensing and magnetometry have mapped anomalies in the subsoil, but no definitive burial chamber emerged. This frustration echoes across the site. A marble stamp bearing Nefertiti's cartouche sits in Berlin's Egyptian Museum, yet her tomb's coordinates remain ghostly. Nefertiti might also lie in the tombs of Amarna Workshop Tomb 28 or 29, where artist I participated. Tomb 28's painted scenes depict a queen wearing the blue crown. Some archaeologists think the chamber was repurposed for Nefertiti's eventual interment after Akhenaten's death. Inside, limestone niches could once have held a canopic chest. Infrared surveys in 2012 detected voids behind the mud brick facade, but deep shafts proved inaccessible. In Tomb 29 nearby, a decorated false door shows reliefs of offerings to Nefer-Nefer-Wat. Yet debris and collapsed roof blocks block any clear passage to a presumed burial chamber. Meanwhile, historians entertain a radical proposal. Nefertiti may never have died in Amarna. After Akhenaten's final year, worship shifted back to Amun. Queen Kia, another consort, vanished from records early. Perhaps Nefertiti abandoned Amarna, adopting a new identity in Thebes. In this scenario, she could have been buried in a previously misidentified tomb in the western desert, far from the failings of the Aten experiment. Inscriptions in certain private tombs reference a mistress of the two lands who lived after. Year 17, potential code for Nefertiti living incognito under a different name. Yet no conclusive artifact reveals that shift. Scientific advances offer new hope. GPR surveys over the north tombs of Amarna reveal rectangular anomalies beneath. Dense clay layers, potential chambers sealed by intentional flooding when the city was abandoned. Modern archaeologists propose drilling narrow boreholes and inserting endoscopic cameras to confirm these voids, but political obstacles and preservation ethics stall deep excavations. Meanwhile, UAV imaging and LiDAR mapping reveal collapsed structures adjacent to the royal wadi. Some believe these vestiges mark a hasty burial, as priests rush to keep Nefertiti's remains from desecration. Museums worldwide hold lethal clues. A collection of canopic pottery fragments in the Cairo Museum, labeled Beloved of Aten, once thought generic, now shows fine hieratic inscriptions. Each jar references an organ preceded by the phrase, "uniting breath of Nefertiti." If reassembled, these jars could guide researchers to her mortar-lined canopic chest location. But without a clear necropolis, conservators hesitate to risk fragile ceramic sherds by extensive restoration until researchers agree on a tomb candidate. Public fascination thrives. Documentaries on streaming platforms dramatize Nefertiti's final days, depicting secret escape tunnels beneath the Amarna floodplain. Novels weave conspiracies about hidden scrolls that describe her covert flight to Punt, another realm of myth and commerce. Video game designers incorporate maps with coded hieroglyphs referencing Queen of the Nile, encouraging players to decode puzzle elements to reveal a secret burial site. Even fashion runways echo her name, collars styled after her bust, headdresses inspired by her flat-top crown. Yet for all this symbolism, the core truth remains elusive. Without a tomb, Nefertiti's mummy eludes identification. Without a clear death date, her timeline floats in shadows. Researchers revisit core samples from royal mummies hoping to find trace elements, salts or pollen, matching Amarna's unique flora. If a mummy were discovered with pollen grains exclusive to that region, it could be Nefertiti. But ethical guidelines on sampling human remain slow such analysis. Still, the hunt continues. In 2021, a team using optically stimulated luminescence, OSL, dating on Amarna's brick fragments, confirmed timelines matching years 1517 of Akhenaten's reign. Such calibration narrows windows for potential tomb-sealing events. If Nefertiti was interred during a specific flood cycle, floodplain mapping might pinpoint her resting place. Meanwhile, metal-detecting missions in the desert detect traces of votive offerings, copper alloy bracelets, and faience amulets inscribed with "the one for whom the sun shines," echoing a queen's funerary regalia. Connie Rivers, an Egyptologist, points out that Nefertiti's disappearance coincides with the rise of the Egyptian priesthood of Memphis. If priests intended to erase her memory, her name might have been systematically chiseled away from temple walls at Karnak. A recent study of chipped hieroglyphs using 3D scanning shows erasure marks that match glyphs for Nefertiti, implying a posthumous damnatio memoriae. If so, her tomb might have been deconsecrated, its contents moved or destroyed. Each scratched glyph thus becomes an echo of her lost journey into the afterlife. Every erased name, every vanished relief, each chip of stone may hide a whisper of Nefertiti's final breath. Next, we pivot from a queen's cryptic fate to a colossal enigma. Great Giza Sphinx's mystery, where age, purpose, and hidden chambers beneath a lion's body challenge history itself. Great Giza Sphinx's mystery. Imagine a lion with a human face carved from living bedrock, staring east for 5 millennia in silent vigil. Sandstorms buffet its eroded body as archaeologists debate who built it, when, and why it faces the rising sun. Now picture scientists using ground-penetrating radar to peer beneath its paws, hunting hidden chambers and buried secrets. The Great Sphinx guards its riddles beneath layers of limestone, daring us to decode its ancient enigma. Under the blazing Egyptian sun, the Giza Plateau unfolds like a stage. Just south of Khafra's pyramid, a colossal limestone statue emerges from desert sands. The Sphinx, its body resembling a crouching lion, stretches nearly 240 feet from paws to tail. Above, a human head wears a fallen royal headdress, once painted in vivid hues. Yet centuries of erosion have worn away those pigments, leaving only whispers of its original grandeur. Traditional Egyptology attributes the Sphinx to Pharaoh Khafre of the 4th dynasty, around 2520 BCE. Carved directly from a mound of bedrock, the statue's proportions align precisely with Khafre's funerary complex. Valley temples, causeway, and pyramid share a celestial alignment toward Heliopolis, city of the sun. In this view, the Sphinx represents Horus in a leonine form, symbolizing kingship and protection. Its gaze faces due east, greeting the dawn's first rays. However, a rival theory has emerged. In the early 1990s, geologist Robert Schoch observed deep-water erosion patterns on the Sphinx's lower enclosure walls. He argued these rounded gutters resulted not from wind and sand, but from heavy rainfall, suggesting the Sphinx predates the Old Kingdom, possibly as early as 5000 BCE or even 7000 BCE when the Sahara experienced monsoonal rains. If true, the Sphinx may belong to a lost pre-dynastic culture, suggesting advanced construction techniques existed before Egypt's recorded history. This water erosion hypothesis ignited fierce debate. Skeptics point to cryptographic inconsistencies and argue temperature shifts could cause similar weathering. Archaeologists continue excavating the Sphinx enclosure, where mammoth blocks of bedrock were cut away to shape the body. Nearby, residue of red marl clay indicates workers laid ramps and earthen platforms to quarry hard limestone. Tool marks visible on the Sphinx's torso reveal copper chisel work and dolerite pounders, confirming typical 4th dynasty labor methods. Ostraca found in a workers' village at Hayt el Gharab contain graffiti naming crews Friends of Khafre and Drunkards of the Sphinx, implying these teams took pride in carving their king's protector. Further mystery lies beneath. In the 1920s, Egyptologist Emile Barrès oversaw extensive restoration of the Sphinx's body. He excavated below the eastern flank, encountering multiple strata of sand, gravel, and clay. Though no tomb was found, rumors swirled of a secret chamber under its chest. Decades later, in the 1990s, GPR surveys detected anomalous voids beneath the Sphinx and in adjacent areas. Some interpret these as collapsed chambers or water tunnels. Others attribute anomalies to fissures in the bedrock bed. A 2016 magnetic resonance elasticity scan suggested a central cavity behind the head, sparking headlines of Sphinx secret chamber. But follow-up tests failed to confirm consistent voids. Local legend adds drama. Egyptian folklore whispers that the Sphinx is the guardian of hidden wisdom. Tales claim coronation of pharaohs required passing a ritual in its shadow. In Islamic tradition, the Sphinx features in stories of Bab al-Shams, a gate to the sun, implying an astral connection to cosmic cycles. Yemeni traveler al-Masudi wrote in the 10th century that the monument bears secret inscriptions sealed in hidden chambers. Though unverified, such accounts sustain the aura of mystery. Literary references deepen the intrigue. Pliny the Elder described the Sphinx's fierce stare, warning travelers across the desert. Renaissance explorers recounted that ancient priests would sleep before dawn next to the statue, whispering prayers to Horus. Modern authors spin fictional quests. Indiana Jones. Films improvise catacombs and serpent traps beneath the paws. Dan Brown's novels suggest occult symbolism, weaving Templar myths into Giza's layout. Though fictional, these tales keep public fascination alight. Scientifically, the Sphinx's nose offers another puzzle. Early European travelers in the 15th century reported seeing the weather-torn face with its distinctive feature. By the 18th century, the nose was gone. Legend blames Napoleon's troops firing cannonballs, yet sketches predating his arrival show no nose. Most historians attribute its loss to Ottoman iconoclasts or local Sufi zealots during the Mamluk period. Whatever the cause, the missing nose contributes to the Sphinx's timeless mystique. In recent years, teams from Cardiff University and elsewhere employed 3D laser scanning to map the Sphinx's surface with millimeter precision. Combining scans with photogrammetric imagery yields digital elevation models, revealing micro-erosion patterns that refine our understanding of weathering. Rates. These data help calibrate climatic models, aligning construction date estimates with environmental records. Yet even with high-resolution maps, the question remains: was the Sphinx carved by Khafre's teams under the hot sun, or by an earlier civilization under a wetter sky? Beyond construction date, the Sphinx's missing body components puzzle scholars. Excavations found no evidence of broken stone that once formed paws or tail. Instead, workers likely reused blocks to rebuild nearby temples. Fragments of Sphinx limestone appear in walls of the Valley Temple. This recycling suggests that after initial construction, later pharaohs repurposed parts for restoration projects. Seeking original pieces thus becomes a detective's game, searching for matching quarry scars and join points. Public engagement has surged. Drone photogrammetry projects allow viewers to fly virtual tours around the Sphinx, mapping erosion zones and restoration patches. Augmented reality apps overlay hypothesized colors onto the weathered limestone, showing the Sphinx once wore a bright red face and a blue headdress. Virtual reconstructions display precisely how the Sphinx's neck and chest once aligned with the Nile's flood levels, suggesting that rising waters may have aided in transporting blocks and provided a smooth base for workers. Yet, in the darkness beneath, engineers hesitate. Any attempt to tunnel under the Sphinx faces risks, destabilizing its substructure, causing long-term damage. Egyptologists propose non-invasive techniques, Muon tomography, seismic tomography, and gravimetric surveys to peer deeper without drilling. These technologies detect density anomalies, hinting at voids or rubble, but higher resolution scans require prolonged data collection, and budget constraints often limit continuous monitoring. For now, the Sphinx holds on to its subterranean riddles. The Sphinx also ties into broader Giza Plateau mysteries. Its alignment with the pyramid suggests a celestial schema. Some propose the Giza layout mirrors Orion's belt, linking Sphinx to Leo constellation. Whether symbolic or coincidental, this Orion correlation theory fascinates New Age circles. Critics point out that survey data show angular deviations that weaken the theory. Nevertheless, the idea that Giza's monuments encode stellar maps persists on social media and in documentary titles like Pyramids of the Gods. Despite border closures and political upheavals, ongoing conservation continues. In 2018, teams applied water repellents and consolidants to damaged limestone. Small-scale trials used plasma cleaning lasers to remove microbial growth without harming the stone. Such delicate restoration preserves the Sphinx's integrity while minimizing human contact. Yet some purists worry about introducing modern materials onto an ancient icon. The debate underscores tension between preservation and authenticity. Tourists still flock. They photograph the Sphinx at sunrise, believing the first light reveals hidden hieroglyphs on its body. Sellers hawk clay replicas and postcards showing the Sphinx with restored nose. Bedouin guides spin campfire tales of pharaoh ghosts wandering between paws. Meanwhile, Egyptian authorities regulate visitor access, funneling crowds through secure paths to prevent further wear on the weathered platform. The monument remains one of the world's most photographed statues. Every shadow cast by its body, every echo in its hollow paws, whispers of secrets buried since antiquity. Cheops pyramids, hidden chambers. Imagine rays of cosmic particles revealing a secret cavern, Inside a 4,500-year-old monolith, darkness within the Great Pyramid stirs as muon detectors map an untouched void and robots inch toward sealed shafts. Now, picture a corridor sealed since Khufu's time, guarding mysteries that not a single soul in millennia has entered. The pyramid stands proud, yet beneath its polished stones, hidden spaces whisper untold stories waiting to be heard. From the outside, Khufu's Great Pyramid seems an open book, its geometry, dimensions, and slopes all documented. But within, Cheops built a labyrinth of chambers, shafts, and tunnels so cunning that only modern technology has begun to unravel them. After entering through the original Pyramidian plugged entrance, early explorers traversed the descending passage, a steep, narrow corridor cutting through solid limestone. At 105 meters down, their path branched toward the subterranean chamber, an unfinished, rough-hewn room gouged directly into bedrock. Why Khufu's architects abandoned this pit remains unclear. Some suggest unstable rock, others propose a ritual. Plan changed mid-construction. The subterranean chamber's floor shows tool marks and pocked depressions, hinting at construction techniques abruptly halted. Ascend from the subterranean, the Grand Gallery looms, a soaring corbelled passage. 8.6 meters high, its walls lined with 10 niches on each side. These indentations align with massive granite blocks that may have served as counterweights during construction. Their perfectly equal spacing indicates remarkable precision. Insufficient space here, and Khufu's king's chamber would collapse. Graffiti scrawled by work crews in red ochre reads, "The friends of Khufu are true," suggesting skilled artisans were allowed to leave marks as signatures of pride. The Grand Gallery slopes upward, leading to the king's chamber, a modest, rectangular room built entirely of Aswan granite. 5 relieving chambers stacked above used trilithon beams to distribute immense weight, preventing the ceiling from collapsing. An iron dagger across this chamber floor would shatter under the pressure. Yet in 2016, cosmic ray detectors placed outside and inside the pyramid revealed something astounding: a large void, now called the Big Void, above the Grand Gallery. At least 30 meters long, this space has no connection to known corridors. Its purpose is unknown. Storage? Ritual aisle? Structural relief? No laser or drill has reached it, and its darkness has remained absolute for over 4 millennia. Below, the king's chamber, a smaller queen's chamber, sits at middle elevation. Despite its name, Pharaoh's wife was never buried here. This chamber sports 2 small shafts, or air channels, cut into its north and south walls. Originally built straight, one shaft was later extended by Thutmose IV's Dream Stele crew. In the 15th century BCE, carving additional passages upward toward the north sky. Why these shafts exist is contested. They might allow the king's spirit to ascend to specific stars, or they could assist with ventilation during construction. In 1993, the first robot crawled into the southern shaft, encountering a copper plug blocking further passage. In 2010, another robot drilled through the plug to reach a hidden door bearing copper handles, like a sealed metal box embedded in limestone. Subsequent drilling revealed a second door. Beyond it lies another corridor, but so far, robots have not breached its endpoint, leaving tantalizing possibilities. Coffin chamber, archive room, something else entirely? The Northern Queen's Chamber shaft led similar expeditions. Robots captured brief glimpses of a small niche, too small for human passage, without any apparent inscriptions. Thermal imaging in 2015 showed slight temperature anomalies along these shafts, hinting at air currents or hidden voids behind walls. Muon tomography, recording high-energy particles from space passing through rock, has become a primary tool. By placing detectors at the base of the pyramid and inside accessible chambers, scientists map density variations. Denser granite or empty space yields distinct muon counts. This data confirmed the Big Void, but lower resolution scans also point to multiple micro-voids near the west face, perhaps collapsed corridors or small storage niches. Each anomaly beckons further probing. Why did Khufu seal these chambers? One theory holds that after the burial, priests filled and plastered passages to protect the pharaoh's secret knowledge. The ascending and descending corridors might have served ritual functions mirroring the sun's path, Khufu's soul rising to join Ra at dawn. Meanwhile, hill-sized granite blocks had to be hoisted into precise positions above these chambers. To move such weight, builders likely erected temporary wooden tracks or earthen ramps within the pyramid's interior before sealing them off. Evidence of plaster covering joints suggests they polished over these work areas, leaving no clue for future explorers. Moreover, the Great Pyramid's construction techniques echo on a smaller scale at Dahshur's Bent and Red Pyramids. There, builders shifted angles mid-construction, a lesson learned that may have influenced Khufu's architects to create hidden structural reinforcement chambers. The Bent Pyramid's cracked core led to a gentler slope at its midpoint. Khufu's team, learning from such trials, engineered core-belt ceilings in the Grand Gallery to distribute stress, a prototype for the relieving chambers above the king's chamber. Such hard-learned lessons underline the hidden design logic behind concealed spaces. Legends twirl around these shafts. Local folklore claims secret initiations once took place inside locked recesses, where select priests underwent rituals deep within. One medieval Arabic text mentions a headless chamber that holds divine words, perhaps a reference to a room not accessible by common tomb robbers. In Coptic traditions, dreams of wandering inside the pyramid's secret halls signify glimpses of divine knowledge. Though lacking empirical evidence, such stories fueled early 20th century expeditions where British engineers tried dynamite to blow open sealed corridors, fortunately without success, preserving the integrity of the structure. In popular culture, authors and filmmakers have transformed these hidden chambers into backdrops for adventure. Dan Brown's Lost Symbol hints at a hidden library inside the Great Pyramid. Video games depict kids sliding through collapsing tunnels beneath Khufu's feet. Documentaries show 3D models animated to transport viewers through the big void, claiming it may hold a secondary burial complex, perhaps Khufu's spare tomb, in case robbers found the original. Regardless of speculation, no human has yet set foot in that void. Researchers now combine muon tomography with acoustic resonance tests. By tapping specific stones with hammers and recording resonant frequencies, teams can detect subtle hollows behind walls. In 2019, a resonance anomaly near the north face matched a muon-identified void's coordinates. Plans to drill a tiny, inconspicuous borehole there remain debated, balancing potential knowledge against the risk of structural damage. The Supreme Council of Antiquities in Cairo remains cautious, granting permits only for non-invasive tests. Pathways to further exploration include deploying advanced catadioptric ultrasound probes, flexible snake-like cameras that can navigate narrow shafts and curve around corners. These devices could traverse the copper-plugged shaft, bypassing metal doors, to film interior walls. If a single stroke of 500-year-old graffiti appears on a hidden corridor's limestone, it could reveal the name of a forgotten architect or a ritual spell, transforming our understanding of Old Kingdom funerary practices. Tourists today queue for hours to enter the Grand Gallery, unaware that mere meters above their heads a vast void stretches intact, untouched since Khufu's funeral procession. Drone-mounted scanners fly overhead, but their sight cannot penetrate the thick blocks of limestone. Each scan, each data point, chips away at mystery, yet with every answer, new questions emerge. Who mapped these passages initially? What was their function? Structural, spiritual, or storage? Did Khufu intend any future king or priest to access These chambers, after his reign, in the end, the Great Pyramid stands not only as a tomb, but as a cosmic riddle. Its hidden chambers serve as bookmarks in an unfinished engineering treatise. They challenge modern minds to merge archaeology, physics, and data science in pursuit of answers. Each muon captured, each resonance vibration recorded, draws the veil back just a little. Every muon that passes through, every echo that reverberates, each particle and sound may lead us to the chamber that Khufu sealed forever. Herodotus's mysterious labyrinth. Imagine a maze so vast that even pharaohs feared to map its endless corridors. Dusty sands cover a basilica of stone corridors reputed to house chambers, temples, and underground lakes. Now, picture Herodotus, writing of it in 450 BCE, yet no walls or halls stand visible today. The lost labyrinth beckons through legend, daring us to reconcile ancient texts with modern scans. Around 450 BCE, the Athenian historian Herodotus recorded tales from priests in Egyptian Thebes, a massive labyrinth lying near Lake Moeris, built by Pharaoh Amenemhat III of the 12th dynasty. He described 12 covered courts, each lined by 30 columns, with chapels for gods and mortuary temples beneath. Beyond these halls lay over 3,000 rooms, half above ground, half below, housing sacred archives, divine statues, and burial chambers, so vast that even the pyramids seemed mere doorways in comparison. Yet, centuries of earthquakes, Nile floods, and human reuse erased visible traces. By the New Kingdom, no pharaoh dared enter its lower levels. Temples reused stones, sandstone blocks melted into roadways. Medieval travelers claimed to glimpse walls under dunes, but no excavation confirmed Herodotus's layout. 19th century, explorers dug near Hawara, Amenemhat's pyramid site, but encountered only rubble from later repossession. They found small chapel fragments bearing labrys, double axe, symbols, hinting at ancient ceremonial use, but found no sprawling corridors. Modern archaeology resumed in the 1980s. At Medinet El Fayum, Frank Federer's team detected a large rectangular foundation next to the Hawara pyramid. Trenches revealed massive mud brick walls, some 3 meters thick, aligned with Herodotus's dimensions. Embedded basalt door jambs matched 12th dynasty inscriptions invoking Sobek, the crocodile god of Fayum's marshes. Radiocarbon sampling of charcoal inside a collapsed chamber dated to circa 1850 BCE, consistent with Amenemhat III's reign. Yet those digs uncovered only a fraction of the alleged complex. No central hypostyle hall surfaced. In 2008, ground-penetrating radar, GPR, surveys over the site offered hints. Linear anomalies stretching over 250 meters east-west and north-south. These lines suggest buried walls or filled-in canals. GPR also detected a possible underground cavity beneath a later Ptolemaic temple. Some scholars theorize that the labyrinth's lower levels extend beneath subsequent structures, making excavation treacherous. Seismic tomography further identified density contrasts indicating large chambers up to 10 meters wide, potentially matching Herodotus's 3,000 rooms. But distinguishing a filled shaft from a plundered hall remains difficult without intrusive probes. Local legends persist in nearby villages. Elders speak of a black labyrinth where priests of Sobek performed nocturnal rites, and of hidden springs that fed subterranean lakes, perhaps linked to the Fayum's ancient canals. One 14th century Arabic manuscript describes a wonderful palace with bronze gates that lured traders until collapsing in a single night. While poetic, such accounts echo the labyrinth's merging of sacred and mundane functions, serving as both divine temple and administrative archive. Herodotus's credibility hinges on his priestly informants. He measured the labyrinth's perimeter at 60 stadia, approximately 11 kilometers, but later Geographers like Strabo scaled it down to 40 stadia. Such discrepancies may arise from collapsed walls or shifting sands obscuring scale. Some Egyptologists argue that Herodotus conflated two separate 12th dynasty complexes, the pyramid complex at Hawara and an earlier temple at Lisht, leading to an amalgamated labyrinth tradition. Yet GPR at Lisht revealed no comparable foundations, reinforcing Hawara's primacy. The labyrinth's function remains contested. Some scholars view it as Amenemhat III's mortuary complex, an elaborate chapel system serving cult priests rather than a navigable maze. In this model, the 3,000 rooms refer to chapels dedicated to various deities arrayed around a central court. Others suggest the lower levels functioned as storerooms for grain, linen, and tribute, secured behind intricate passageways to thwart tomb robbers. If true, its scale symbolized royal power. Only the pharaoh and high priests knew the true roots. Technological advances promise new clues. In 2022, a multi-institution team deployed magnetometer arrays across a 500 x 500 meter grid at Hawara, mapping subtle magnetic anomalies from buried mud brick walls. Preliminary data outlined a rectangular grid consistent with ancient walls found by Federer. Simultaneously, drone-mounted LiDAR scans exposed soil moisture differences. Ancient canals still guide water flow beneath the surface, preserving the labyrinth's outline in persistence. Researchers plan to combine LiDAR, GPR, and seismic tomography to refine a 3D model. Funding, however, constrains deep investigation. The site abuts modern farmlands. Any large-scale dig would disrupt irrigation. Egyptian authorities prioritize preserving visible antiquities over risky subterranean work. International teams propose constructing narrow boreholes, just wide enough for fiber optic endoscopes, to peer into intact chambers without large-scale excavation. Such a project could confirm if the labyrinth's lower levels remain sealed or were looted in antiquity. Popular culture enshrines the labyrinth as an epic quest. Video games imagine hidden treasure rooms guarded by crocodile statues. Documentaries dramatize lost maps, showing pathways to a hall of records containing Amenemhat's royal library. While thrilling, these portrayals sometimes mix myth with fact, emphasizing the labyrinth's symbolic role as a repository of ancient wisdom rather than a literal maze. Whether the lost labyrinth lies buried beneath Hawara's sands or exists only in Herodotus's penmanship, its legend endures. Each GPR ping, each magnetic survey, each borehole camera advance inches us closer to confirming or refuting ancient claims. Until then, the labyrinth remains a testament to Egypt's capacity for architectural ambition and the eternal human. Fascination with hidden corridors, every oscillation in the ground, every echo from a buried wall beckons us to solve the maze Amenemhat built. Next, from the stone corridors of Hawara, we navigate the Nile's waters to explore the mysterious land of Punt, where incense flows, exotic fauna roam, and trade routes vanish into myth. The mysterious land of Punt. Imagine a kingdom so rich in incense and ivory that Egyptians called it God's land. Sails fill with desert wind as ships depart from Mursa-Gawasis, bound for unknown coasts. Now picture traders returning, with baboon tributes and exotic myrrh no one back home had ever seen. Punt's haze of myth beckons us to trace trade winds, ancient logs, and faded reliefs. Around 2500 BCE, under Queen Hatshepsut's reign, Egypt's sailors loaded cedar, ebony, and metal tools onto reed and wood vessels. Their destination, a fabled land called Punt. Temple reliefs at Deir el-Bahri depict Punt's emissaries, baboons posed like priests, trees heavy with incense, and women bearing gold necklaces. These carvings reveal not just a trading mission, but a diplomatic entourage receiving Egypt's queen on foreign soil. Yet Punt's exact location remains disputed. Modern researchers propose Eritrea or Somalia's coastline, while others argue for Yemen's southern peninsular shores. Logbooks recently discovered at Wadi al-Jarf, coastal warehouses dated to Khufu's reign, describe voyages 17 days down the Red Sea until sailors sight red mountains on the horizon. Those mountains likely mark Eritrea's mountainous coast. Papyrus fragments list cargo, 30 tons of myrrh, 100 kilid of elephant tusks, and blocks of ebony. These goods fueled Egyptian temple rituals. Every dawn at Karnak, thick smoke incense from Punt rose before the statue of Amun-Re. Yet navigating the Red Sea wasn't simple. Ancient sailors relied on seasonal monsoon winds, hugging the Africans. Coast to avoid open ocean hazards, they charted courses by stars. Sirius and Orion guided them, while celestial navigation manuals, lost to time, likely existed. Archaeological evidence of anchor stones and ceramic shards at sites like Berenike confirm that Red Sea trade peaked in the Middle Kingdom, but Punt missions date back even earlier. Beyond material wealth, Punt's allure lay in diplomatic grandeur. Egyptian records show Puntite rulers received gifts, carnelian beads, gold bracelets, and fine linen in exchange for incense trees. Reliefs illustrate Punt's architecture, stilted dwellings on riverbanks, and men paddling rounded canoes. Inscriptions reference a king of Punt, yet no Puntite texts survive. This unilateral documentation leaves modern scholars piecing together Punt's social structure from Egyptian perspectives alone. Recent research uses strontium isotope analysis on baboon skeletal remains from Deir el-Bahri's mortuary complex. These analyses match known Punt region groundwater signatures, strengthening the Eritrea-Somalia hypothesis. Meanwhile, satellite imagery near Eritrea's Dahlak archipelago reveals shallow water stone alignments, possible ancient jetties or docking areas. Partial excavations uncovered lens-shaped anchor stones carved with rope notches. If these were Puntite docks, they provide a rare glimpse of Punt's maritime infrastructure. Still, questions endure. Did Punt maintain its own writing system? Did local kings rule maritime city-states that joined loose confederations? Some believe Punt was not a single polity, but a network of coastal trading ports extending from the Horn of Africa to the Arabian coast. That would explain why Puntite offerings include resin levels, matching both Somali and Yemeni frankincense species. Until direct Puntite inscriptions or a comprehensive underwater survey reveal a sunken harbor, Punt remains part geography, part legend, an ancient trade network veiled in incense smoke. Every anchor stone, every rare resin shipment, whispers of a kingdom half seen, half imagined across the Red Sea. Dendera's light, ancient Egypt's electrical theory. Imagine temple walls aglow with bulbs, carved stone depicting a giant lamp centuries before Edison. In Hathor's sanctuary at Dendera, reliefs show priests holding tubular shapes, topped by serpent-like filaments. Now picture modern researchers debating whether these carvings record myth or a forgotten form of electricity. Dendera's light beckons us to question, did ancient Egyptians understand energy, or is this illusion carved in stone? Under the sandstone vaults of the Hathor temple, beams of artificial light would have been an engineering marvel. Yet Dendera's reliefs hint at something extraordinary. In the cryptic hypostyle hall, columns and ceilings remain capped with star-filled constellations. But on a lower register, a series of panels show figures gripping long, bulbous shapes that taper into coils and serpents. Each bulb encloses a plant-like motif, and a central bar appears to support the whole assembly. When these images first drew Western attention in the 19th century, proponents of fringe theories exclaimed, "Behold the Egyptian light bulb, mainstream." Egyptologists counter that these carvings represent the pagan Djed pillar and the lotus flower symbolism tied to creation myths. According to conventional interpretation, The coiled snake signifies the Kundalini serpent rising from a lotus at the cosmic pillar of stability, the Jed. Here, the bulb is simply a stylized lotus blossom, and the supporting bar is a mythic tomb of Osiris, rather than an electrical conduit. Yet the uncanny resemblance to a modern incandescent lamp, complete with filament-like snake and power-channeling bar, fuels endless debate. In the 1990s, a group of electrical engineers visited the temple and took detailed tracings of the bulbs. They noted that the tubular shapes measure roughly 40 centimeters long, too large for any handheld ritual object. Some suggested the interior plant motif might represent an electroluminescent substance, perhaps a resin-treated papyrus that glowed when mixed with mineral salts. In 2010, spectrographic analysis on residue from a nearby offering table revealed the traces of copper and tin oxides, ingredients used in 19th century light-sensitive paints. Though not proof of ancient bulbs, these findings suggest Egyptians experimented with reflective surfaces. Archaeological records show that Dendera's shrine was built and renovated under multiple Ptolemaic and Roman rulers from around 237 BCE to 20 CE. During this period, Greek and Egyptian knowledge intertwined. Vitruvius's De Architectura, circa 15 BCE, describes lamps fueled by animal fat, but makes no reference to glass or electricity. Yet Alexandria's library scholars translated Greek treatises into Demotic, possibly bringing Hellenistic science into the Egyptian fold. Could this cross-pollination have inspired a secret workshop experimenting with materials that glowed under friction or chemical reaction? Local lore says that Roman engineers once lowered mirrors and polished copper plates into the temple's crypts to reflect sunlight through hidden shafts, illuminating the ceiling like a starry sky. An inscription records a day of lamps, festival where priests processed statuary under flickering flames in darkened corridors. If these torches used phosphorus-treated resin, created by mixing animal fat with phosphorus-rich minerals, they might have produced a faint, eerie glow, resembling modern electroluminescence. Some researchers tested resin-coated papyrus, finding under lab conditions it emitted a faint greenish light when heated, though sustaining that glow in a temple environment would require constant heat and a lurking source of phosphorus. Further clues appear in Dendera's Greco-Roman zodiac ceiling. The central relief shows Ursa Minor encircled by symbols of Jupiter and Saturn. Near it, a small staff-like object leads to an eye-shaped lens motif. Fringe theorists argue this lens represents a crude magnifying glass used to focus sunlight into a concealed cavity, functioning as a solar battery powering a hidden arc lamp. Mainstream scholars note no valued glass objects or prehistoric lenses were found at Dendera, but small rock crystal beads discovered nearby could have served as primitive optical tools. If polished quartz pieces existed at the temple, they may have refracted sunlight into cavernous niches, creating radiant effects that inspired symbolic carvings. In 2016, a team from Cairo University used ground-penetrating radar, GPR, to scan beneath the sanctuary floor. They detected a small, roughly rectangular void directly under the bulb relief, approximately 1.5 meters in length and 0.5 meters deep. Although too narrow for a human, this cavity might have housed a clay or metal vessel containing an oil-based lamp or phosphorescent compound. The vessel's top would align with the carved bulb, giving the impression of a stone lantern illuminated from within. No residue was detected during a robotic probe, but archaeochemical sensors for phosphorus remain untested. Nearby papyri from a Dendera archive mention offerings to light the way for Hathor's tears, interpreted by some as instructions for fueling glowing lamps during nighttime ritual processions. These texts list fine oil, reed wicks, and white phosphorus salts, ingredients matching a rudimentary phosphor-bronze mix. When ignited in a sealed container, such a mix can produce a sustained glow. However, ancient Egyptians lacked distillation technology for isolating pure phosphorus. They could have, at best, collected phosphorus from animal bones during cremation, an effort requiring specialized workshop and ritual taboos, making large-scale production unlikely. Skeptics emphasize that no electrical wiring, metal conductors, or power sources ever surfaced at Dendera. Roman period engineers documented in Hierapolis carved aqueduct systems to cool large pools, but never mentioned subterranean dynamos or conductive stones. Instead, Dendera's illumination techniques likely relied on reflective metal plates and oil lamps, a practical solution for deep hypostyles. In 2018, an Iron Age lamp with an extended bronze nozzle was found in a nearby workshop, matching designs that could focus flame nearer to a figure's base, casting sharper shadows and intensifying the temple's mystical aura. Despite conflicting theories, Dendera's light remains a point of fascination. Documentaries like Ancient Astronauts dramatize hidden voltmeters and underground power stations, while scholarly articles in Journal of Egyptian Archaeology argue for symbolic rather than technological interpretations. Popular online forums flood with disputes over whether the bulbs reflect knowledge lost to time or simply ingenious religious iconography. Today, conservationists use LED fixtures in the hypostyle hall to simulate how torchlight might have glowed against the carved reliefs, creating an immersive experience. Virtual reality recreations overlay hypothesized light sources behind the bulbs, allowing visitors to glimpse a quasi-electrical marvel. Meanwhile, a new project by the University of Tübingen plans to test small phosphor-coated papyrus tubes in controlled desert conditions, aiming to reproduce any ancient luminescent effect. Every carved coil, every powdered mineral whispers that Dendera's architects encoded more than myth into stone, they encoded wonder itself. Next, we sail from Dendera's ethereal glow to the bones of conflict at sea, Sea People's Mystery, where phantom invaders arrive on Egypt's delta shores. Stay curious, stay weird. Sea People's Mystery. Imagine an armada of warriors appearing like ghosts on Egypt's shores, no homeland known, no language recorded. Chariots dust off at Memphis while scribes scratch frantic dispatches. They come from the sea, and they bring chaos. Now picture pharaohs scrambling secret archives, praying ancestral gods can repel phantom invaders. The Sea People's savage raids reshape Egypt's twilight. Histories record them, but their origin remains cloaked in mystery. By the late 13th century BCE, Egypt's new kingdom reigned supreme. Yet at the Battle of the Delta, circa 1177 BCE, inscriptions on Ramesses III's mortuary temple at Medinet Habu depict colossal ships bearing masked warriors storming coastal fortresses. The reliefs label them peoples of the sea, wielding javelins and swords. Ramesses III boasts repelling 5 Sea Peoples confederations: the Peliset, likely Philistines, Tertia, Shekelish, Danaan, and Weshesh. Their composite crests, plumed helmets, round shields reflected Aegean and Anatolian design motifs, hinting at a coalition of displaced tribes ravaging eastern Mediterranean coasts. Contemporary Hittite texts refer to upheavals in Anatolia, Mycenaean, palace collapses, drought-driven famine, and population migrations. Some scholars theorize that earthquake, climate shift, and social collapse pushed Aegean sailors into mercenary life or piracy. These sea peoples boarded swift biremes, targeting wealthy coastal cities. They attacked Ugarit, destroyed Cyprus cities, and pressed south toward Egypt's Nile Delta. Having sacked Canaanite ports, they arrived at Egypt's doorstep as a coalition with no unified king. Each group retained its own chieftains, complicating Egyptian diplomacy. Ramesses III's records record two engagement phases: a land battle at Jayi, Lebanon, where Egyptian armies held them off, and a naval battle at the delta's mouth. Pharaoh's inscriptions claim he built a trench and barricaded approaches with tethered ships. Egyptian archers and chariots ambushed sea peoples on shallow marshes. Reliefs show bodies floating in canal waters and burnt ships tied to the shoreline. Yet archaeological layers at Tanis and Damietta show fire destruction circa 1175 BCE, aligning with these texts. However, no Sea People settlement layers appear in Lower Egypt, suggesting their survivors either fled or were assimilated rather than permanently occupying land. Despite this defeat, Egypt's power waned. The cost of mercenary bands, coastal defenses, and tribute payments busied state coffers. Economic records from years 9 to 10 of Ramesses III's reign reveal grain shortages and forced corvée levies. Tomb robbery papyri from Thebes lament slipping, revenues hinting that sea peoples indirectly starved temples. Within decades, Ramesses Beninthi's court recorded that there is no king, no high priest, no army, signaling the end of centralized rule. Effectively, Sea Peoples' incursions accelerated the Late Bronze Age collapse in Egypt, echoing broader regional destabilization. Yet who exactly were they? Philistine pottery styles, Mycenaean III C.B.Ware, appear in coastal Canaanite sites. Circa 1175 BCE, supporting an Aegean origin. Naming conventions like Peliset phonetically mirror Philistines. DNA analysis of skeletal remains in burial sites at Ashkelon shows mixed European and Levantine ancestry, consistent with migrating Aegean groups integrating local populations. Meanwhile, isotope studies on human teeth from Sicily and Sardinia reveal transferable Mediterranean coastal networks, indicating that Sea Peoples likely originated from multiple source regions, not a single people. Luwian hieroglyphic records mention Tirsa, possibly linked to Tyrrhenians, ancestors of Etruscans sailing from western Anatolia. Shekelesh might connect to Sicily's Shekelesh or Sikels. Danaian could correspond to the Danaoi, a Homeric name for Greeks. Such linguistic ties bolster a Mosaic origin theory, a confederation of marauding units bound temporarily by opportunism. They pillaged and retreated, never founding lasting kingdoms in Egypt. Their legacy endured, however, in the collapse of trade networks and the shift from Bronze to Iron Age weaponry. Egyptian records note captured Sea People swords made of ice, tin-bronze alloy with high arsenic content, a metallurgical divergence from Egyptian standards. Maritime archaeology has recovered shipwrecks off Ugarit, containing Aegean-style pottery and weapon caches matching Sea Peoples' iconography. In 2007, excavators at Cape Gelidonia, Turkey, discovered a late Bronze Age ship carrying Mycenaean Thrace pottery, copper ingots, and armor, suggesting supply routes that Sea Peoples exploited. Underwater surveys near Cyprus uncovered charred timbers with Lycian's pottery, confirming Sea Peoples raided eastern Mediterranean islands. Each find traces fragments of their fleeting presence, but fails to reveal a centralized homeland. Egypt's own adaptation highlights their impact. In later Ramesses texts, people of Naharine, Mitanni, joined Sea Peoples in propaganda catalogs, conflating older enemies with new waves. By the Third Intermediate Period, Libyan tribes appear as another foreign threat, born from Sea Peoples' westward drift. Thus, Sea Peoples indirectly catalyzed Libyan infiltration into Egypt's delta, further fracturing political unity. Over centuries, these Western invaders integrated into Egyptian society, founding the 22nd and 23rd dynasties of Libyan origin. Modern researchers employ network theory models to simulate Sea Peoples' migration. Climate data, textual records, and archaeological sites feed algorithms that predict plausible coastal routes. Simulations show a high-probability corridor from western Anatolia through the Aegean, Cyprus, and down to Canaan, matching textual accounts and material finds. Yet the sea, ever shifting, hides final answers. Submerged sites along ancient coastlines might hold key remains, only accessible via remote diving expeditions. Despite extensive study, every new artifact raises more questions. Was the Confederation premeditated or spontaneous? Did they seek new lands or merely plunder? Could some sea peoples have settled peacefully, enriching local cultures with their metallurgy and ceramic styles? Certain Philistine pottery motifs resemble motifs found in southern France and Balearic Islands, suggesting broader Mediterranean ties. But until DNA, isotopes, and underwater sites fully converge, the Sea People's enigma remains open. Every shard of Mycenaean pottery, every tribal name scratched in text, pulls us deeper into a web of waves, winds, and vanished homelands. The Sea Peoples did not simply strike Egypt. They fragmented empires, reshaped trade, and ushered in the Iron Age. Their transient raids echo through Egyptian collapse narratives and the rise of new powers. Even now, coastal surveys and genetic tests seek a final glimpse of those blurs. On the horizon, in the ebb and flow of history, they remind us the sea holds secrets, but curiosity will always chart a course to discovery.